Hey folks, I'm Norb, and I want to talk a bit about the Hidizs SD2. This is a $49 DAC amp that's designed to be plugged into your device's USB-C port and to be used with whatever 3.5mm connected headphone or IEM you plan to use. Of course, my question is whether this is really worth the $40 premium over a simple $9 Apple 3.5mm to USB-C adapter. So let's take a look. By the way, Hidizs did send me this for my honest opinion, but they've had no input into any of my conclusions. There's a basic Amazon link in the description, so while I'd be grateful if you bought it using that link should you decide to pick one up for yourself, those links don't affect at all what I say here. From a spec sheet standpoint, the SD2 looks fantastic. It has a good DAC chip, the ES9270, which allows for call pass-through, good power delivery with 70 milliwatts per channel at 32 ohms. A surprise, by the way, was that the SD2 doesn't use a ton of power. And it's got a compact metal design with a solid build. It has a USB-C connector on one side and an angled 3.5mm unbalanced jack on the other, which I'll get to in a second. I tested the SD2 mostly with the Hidizs MS2 Pro since the company sent them as a pair. By the way, I did a full review on that one, check out the description. I also tested it with some other devices, most notably the Meze Poet, the Hi-Fi Man Ananda, the Focal Azuris, the Kiwi Ears Ellipse and Altruva, and the Dunu DaVinci. I'll be reviewing or talking about most of these in the near future, so be sure to subscribe if you'd like to hear about those. From a practical standpoint, my thoughts are mostly positive but somewhat mixed. First off, the sound leans a little bright with an energetic treble and a detailed, well-controlled bass. It has nice crisp mids as well. It's never harsh, at least not for me with what I tested, and it definitely, I think, favors clarity, at least in my experience. The SD2 provided enough power to drive all of the headphones to my liking, but it definitely struggled a bit with both the Poet and the Ananda, both of which are plain magnetic headphones. In both cases, I had to have the volume at almost 100% to get a good sound. With the Azuris, the Ellipse, and the Altruva, on the other hand, the SD2 was plenty loud enough. Those are all dynamic driver headphones, by the way. Finally, the DaVinci is an IEM, so this worked totally well for that. Of these, my favorite pairings were the Ananda and the DaVinci, and my least favorite was the Azuris. They all sounded good, but there was just something about the Azuris that just didn't work for me. With the Ananda, the tight response, the resolution, and the articulation really made for a great combination. With the DaVinci, it keeps things relaxing while still being detailed and crisp. Now let's talk about the design. I like that it's compact, but it is not without its issues. The big issue I see right off the bat is the angle of the audio port. It's great for use since it angles the audio cable rather than extending it out. But if you're not careful when pulling out the audio jack, you potentially put the USB-C port on your device at risk. Finally, it also has a wide base which doesn't quite fit with all cases because of the way the base of the USB-C port is shaped. As you can see, it flares out a little bit, and in some cases the opening will be smaller than this, the opening in the case I mean. Again, it's more of a case thing, it's a case-by-case scenario, but that definitely impacts my case. There was a lot of use of the word case there. As a workaround, I bought a U-shaped USB-C connector which made the SD2 a lot better to use. I'll link it in the description along with everything else. One thing I like is that the SD2 also has a small sampling rate light, and that tells you what quality audio you're getting. Red for PCM 44.1 to 48 kHz, which is standard quality for most streaming services, and blue for PCM 88.2 to 384 kHz and DSD 128, which is more common for high resolution audio. Most people will see red most of the time, and that's perfectly fine. Now, as I said, the SD2 uses the ES9270 DAC chip, which allows for microphone pass-through at high quality, and it upconverts audio to 24-bit 48 kHz. So you can use this for calls or gaming if you have an inline mic. Using this on my phone and on Windows computers was absolutely flawless, no issues. But I can't say the same for my MacBook Pro. The SD2 simply did not like my MacBook at all. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. If you're a Mac OS user, keep that in mind. Now, an obvious question is whether this is better than the Apple 3.5mm adapter, which is $9 rather than the SD2's $49 retail price. If you're using Android, then the answer is definitely yes. The Apple dongle has a significant volume limitation on Android that requires workarounds or root access to fix. Plus, I think the SD2 just is more durable. I mean, look at it. For Apple users, it's a little bit more of a mixed answer. The SD2 will give you more power, and it's a higher fidelity DAC amp with a neutral, cleaner sound profile and support for high-resolution audio. 32-bit 384 kHz for the SD2 versus 24-bit 48 kHz for the Apple adapter. Practically speaking, the Apple adapter is a value champ for a reason, and whether you're going to hear this difference or not depends on your power needs and what you're pairing it with. For me, it depends on my use case at the moment. I prefer the SD2 with headphones where I want noticeable articulation and where I just need more power. So I find that it tends to provide just a bit better of an experience in some cases. For example, the SD2 does a better job with them as a poet than the Apple adapter. But when I'm using IEMs at home, I actually tend to reach for the Apple dongle since the SD2 can be too loud at my preferred listening levels. Still, the SD2 is a capable little DAC with some thoughtful features which I really came to appreciate. For $49, it's a perfectly solid option. Unless you're using it with a MacBook, then consider something else. All right, if you have any questions, hit me up in the comments and I'll answer whatever I can. Anyway, with that, take care.